Hello, and welcome to another educational video about screen printing by Catspit Productions. Today's video is about puff ink, and we were fortunate enough to have some puff ink donated to us to play with. This is an ink manufactured by a company called Antax, and they're a Turkish ink company, and they make Plastisol inks as well as water-based inks. And I'm not sure about the availability of this product in the States, but they're seeking business and distributorships in the United States. So they sent us some ink to play with and test out and see if we liked it and see if we wanted to buy it or perhaps work with them on this ink. And so they sent us a puff base and a color, Plastisol color. So what we're going to do today is we're going to test the puff base, and we're going to mix some of the puff base with the Plastisol color and make a red type of puff ink. Okay, and it's always important to make sure that you have the technical data sheets when you work with a new ink, or especially a specialty ink that might require specific mesh counts or specific curing temperatures and this and that. And interestingly enough, this ink is, it's a Plastisol ink, and we're used to having Plastisol inks cured about 320 to 330 degrees Fahrenheit. For here it's given in Celsius, which is 150 degrees Celsius, and I believe that works out to 302 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's interesting cure. And also the mesh count, they're giving us a mesh count of a 34T all the way to a 62T. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that is the European measurement or the Swiss measurement, and you can find an article on the Catspit Productions website. Under the article archive section, there's an article about mesh nomenclature and mesh count conversions, and it actually has a great chart that will give you the equivalent of that. But we're going to use a 125/40 mic mesh to do this, because with a puff ink, a Plastisol puff ink, the more volume of ink that you lay down, the higher the puff will be, as well as the more puff you add to the mixture, the more puff action you'll get. Okay, so let's take a look at the puff ink close up and then move into some quick printing. I just have a little red lips here to show, just to demonstrate, because puff ink is one of those types of inks that, it was really popular in the 80s, but today less is more with puff ink. And you might only use puff ink for a certain portion of your design, like perhaps you've got a sports design with football, and you might use a brown puff on the football to give it a little raised texture and make it look cool. Or if you're doing automotive and there's a tire, or say tire tracks or something like that, you might use a black puff to accent that particular part of the design. But we wouldn't print a whole design in puff ink like we used to in the 80s, when puff ink was all like with neon colors and puff ink and all that stuff from the 80s. So, all right, so let's move in and check it out. Okay, so here we have the puff base and the Plastisol color. Okay, now this is going to leave a lot of ink, but let's just do this for comparison so you can see what's going on, even though this is not really a real amount of ink. Here's the puff base with no pigment or anything in it, and this is the Plastisol color that we're going to add to it. And this is what happens when you put heat. Okay, so you can see the Plastisol ink is a regular Plastisol, it's just flat, and the puff ink, as you saw, had that dramatic reaction of getting three-dimensional. If you can see that, I know the white is probably reflecting a lot of light, but it's very three-dimensional here now. It's puffed out, and it also has turned white, and that's kind of the nature of the puff base. That's kind of the nature of it. And you have to keep that in mind when you're working with a puff base and you add color. That's a lot of ink there. Let's see if we can get that to, when you add a lot of color, it'll change the color, as you'll see here. Okay, this is now the red Plastisol ink with the puff base added into it. And what we're going to get here is a puffing action, but the color is going to be a little bit more pink. Okay, and hopefully you can see that. It's very hard to use a heat gun to do this kind of thing. You can burn the shirt really easily, but you can see how raised that is and how puffy it got. Okay, but you can compare the color, what happens. So when you mix these two, this is what you get here. And you can retain more of the true color of this red ink if you add less puff. But then you will need to use more volume of the ink to get that puffiness that you want. And you know, the more puff you put in, the more it's going to puff. So let's do a quick test print and just kind of see what it looks like. Even though with the little red lips, you know, we'll see how much you can see, but we'll do a test print and check it out. Okay, so here I have a little bit of the puff ink mixed together, and the ratio that they give you can vary from 50-50 and onward. Okay, so it's like you can add various amounts of puff to color, and generally a 50-50 ratio will give you the best puff action. But check with the ink manufacturer on that always. You know, you always want to check and see what they say. Now remember, like I said, not only is it the puff ink to Plastisol ink ratio that determines the puff action, but it's also the volume of ink that you lay down on the t-shirt. So if you want a dramatic puff effect, then you would try to lay down a lot of ink. Okay, so there's a decent amount of ink right there. Let's see what happens to that. And I will. Here, let me zoom in for you guys so you can see the puff action. Okay. Okay, so you can see how it puffs up, and it actually, if you can see, it wrinkles the shirt a little bit. Okay, and as you can see, one of the things that you need to be concerned with when you print a puff design is that the artwork, you know, is not going to get filled in too much. In the, you know, like these lips had a little bit of, you know, wrinkles and such on there. So as the ink expands and puffs, it's going to fill in detail. So puff ink is not the best ink for high detail. You want to use it for nice open spots in your spot colors. You know what I'm saying? Like nice open spots. This isn't so bad. It actually might even lend to lips here because of the way the whole thing wrinkles and textures. And you can still see the lip lines and such. So actually right there, it's not bad. I don't know. I might like that. I would show the customer if that was a job, you know, and see what happens. But so that's about it. That's a puff ink provided to us free of charge to play with and test out by Antex. And thanks a lot to Antex, we appreciate that. And we have a couple more inks of theirs to test out in the future. So we'll get to play with some specialty inks and stuff like that that they sent for us to play with. All right, so thanks a lot for checking out my videos. I really appreciate you guys stopping by the website and stopping by the YouTube channel and watching all my videos and rating thumbs up. And if you like what you see, please subscribe. I really appreciate that. And thanks again for all your support.